IPMNation.com.
All natural being.
Warning, All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Welcome to All Natural Being. I'm Brian Brawdy, fired up once again to be with you, hanging out. The big picture, my tending, as we discussed yesterday, my tending in life to simply remind you who you already are. No tapping out, no surrendering, no caving, no leaving your soul on the sidelines, leaving your spirit in the cellar, no living in the backwaters of our brains and all the crawl spaces, the nooks and crannies of our minds. All Natural Being is a show about you, and I want to welcome you to the show. Now, a little bit of business out of the way. We do this every Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern. Of course, later this morning at 11 a.m., and then later this evening at 8 p.m. right here on IPMNation.com. We'll go ahead and rebroadcast it for the folks that reached out to me over the weekend and yesterday for certain. Asking me about iTunes. Thank you so very much for that. Thank you for your 5-star votes. It's really appreciated. Very helpful, I'm told. I don't know much about iTunes, but I'm told it's helpful for people to do that. So thank you very much. Remember, as always, throughout the show, 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. Of course, you can also reach me at Twitter, Brian Brawdy. Facebook, Brian Brawdy Official, and also allnaturalbeing.com. Send me your email. I'll send you an email back, and we'll go from there. All right. So again, my apologies. If you listened, if you listened to yesterday's show, you know that we're having some computer glitches. My laptop, MacBook Pro, decided it would like a week at the spa. Right? It wants to get a manicure, a pedicure, mani-pedi, maybe a wax job. Wants to get a nice hot rock massage. So it decides to tap out on me Friday right after the show. So it's enjoying a week at an Apple Care facility. Just kind of kicking back, having maybe, sipping on some juice near the pool, getting a massage, that kind of thing. So we're in hopes that it's having a blast. Hey, send a postcard if you can. We hope the laptop's having a great time at Club Apple. And hopefully we will have that back. So let me apologize in advance for any of the audio qualities or some of the other things. Most notably, right, I never thought to program my iPads or my phones to be able to do on Facebook what I do on the laptop. So some of our quote cards and everything else, which you can tell from the number of responses. Yeah, just leaving the tagline up there isn't working really well. I need to work to get the quote boards back, and we are most certainly doing that. So again, in advance, my apologies. All right, today on the show, we're going to talk 4 different segments. The first one, which this segment is the anaerobic aphorism that we posted last night. The anaerobic aphorism, the 4-letter password for human happiness. 4 letters, right? Like if you go up to an ATM, you have a password. 4-letter password for human happiness, GRIT. That's what it boils down to. You got to have grit to be happy. No head games. Takes grit to throw yourself into the grind. It takes grit to jump gladly into the rough and tumble of the road less traveled, right? Yes? Capiche? Grit. So, the 4-letter password for your happiness is grit, and we're going to talk about that at length in segment number 1. Segment number 2, kicking it off with a quote from Nietzsche. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. There's a couple of singers out now, I think, that has that same song, kind of borrowing from Nietzsche, as one would, wouldn't you? You're out sometime, you go, oh yeah, I think I'll drop a little bit of Frederick here. So we wanted to do the second segment, What Doesn't Kill Me Makes Me Stronger. I want to talk about the difference between timid or tough. And what time travel, Brian, what does time travel have to do with any of that? We're going to talk about that in segment number 2. Segment number 3. Kicking it off with a quote from William James, you remember? Great prolific author, psychologist, human optimization expert. Says the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. Wow, I thought stress was like more formidable. I thought it was a physical thing. It was, how could it be tied to just changing one thought, replacing one thought with another thought? Well, I think William James is right. And in segment number 3, I'm going to prove it to you. Because ultimately, stress, it's just an alarm. But we're going to talk about how is it. There's a second time when it comes to time travel. We'll be talking about time travel in both the second and the third segments. And then, as promised yesterday, we're going to use, in segment 4, we're going to kick it off with O.S. Martin's quote, that deep within us dwell those slumbering powers, powers that would astonish us, that we never dreamed of possessing, forces that would revolutionize our lives if we aroused and put them into action. We're going to talk about some of those slumbering powers that sit within you. As you know, wink, wink, nod, nod, I call it the all-natural being. I call it your inner superhuman. I'm simply here to say that when you tap into the truly unimaginable power of living in the present moment, that's a way to agitate, if you will, to kind of stir up some of your apathy. And just below that apathy, below all the sediment, all the ashes, all the thoughts of why this life isn't here to thrill you. Beneath all of that sits your all-natural being, the real you. When we get back to square one, again paraphrasing Rumi, the root of the soul. Because that's you, that's your all-natural being. And we're going to talk about those slumbering powers. What can we do? What can we do to jumpstart those powers once and again so that we can optimize our outlook no matter what the labyrinth throws at us? No matter what happens, we're in. We're ready to go. We're ready to face the challenges of this particular moment and all the time. All right, so that'll be our 4 segments. I also wanted to go back. I mentioned yesterday about the impromptu focus group that I had over the weekend. And one of the things, I probably told this story before, but I should start. When I was a very young lad, little guy, inch high to a grasshopper, or whatever, however my grandparents used to say that. My grandfather, back when I graduated, said to me, he gave me a quote. The guy's name is Don Shane, Shayne. But what my granddad used to do is, in addition to teaching me like Greek and Latin and making me read all these wild passages and all the books, my grandfather would make these quote cards. And I don't know, maybe they're like a foot long, and as I look at this, maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 inches tall, so it's a rectangle. But what he would do is he would handwrite very proficiently. He would handwrite out these quotes, put them on these boards, punch 2 holes in the boards, and then put a little piece of string on them. So you could kind of hang these wherever you wanted. So I happened to mention during the focus group with some dear friends of mine, some family and some friends, about all-natural being, because I want to make sure that if you give me a full hour, whatever time of day and whatever format you choose, if you give me the full hour, I want to make sure it's worth your while. I just want to get on here and blather on, blah, 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 sound like Charlie Brown's mom. I want to bring some stuff to the paint that's really going to work. So one of the things that came out of that focus group was I happened to mention a quote that my grandfather gave to me, that I still have. It's in the studio. When we go to live video here over the next 5-10 days, whenever that's going to work out, whenever my computer decides to come back from its sabbatical, we're going to go ahead and I'll show you. It'll open with this quote, because this quote hangs in the studio every day. It's something that I look at. And the quote is simply this: would the boy you were be proud of the man you are? And one of my dear friends in our little dinner party / focus group said, well, I think that's a great quote. And you could paraphrase it. You could say, would the girl you were be proud of the woman you are? So for me, I look at this quote, I see this dovetailing with the quote I ask all the time, was I me? When you're on your deathbed, you look back over your life, are you going to be happy? Will you feel like you've been successful? Will you feel like you've been fulfilled? Well, here's just coming at it from another way. Well, you're currently right where you are, so you're kind of doing a retrospective of your life to date, right? I get an email this morning from Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary says, his 3 words, just 3 words. And he said, you're going to die. So it's coming for all of us. So we have to figure out, what are we going to do with the limited time that we have to release our inner superhuman, to tap into our all-natural being, to optimize our outlook no matter what the labyrinth throws at us. So this quote, would the boy or girl you were be proud of the man or the woman that you've become? It's just a way of stopping right now where you are, doing the retrospective, right? Because to figure out who you are right now, you have to kind of go over, you have to have an appraisal of what you've done to date, and then say, okay, would that child be proud of where it got to at this stage in life? Or you could go ahead, go to your final day. Was I me? I'm told some people call it the rocking chair test. When you're in your final days and you're sitting in your rocking chair, where you look back and go, double thumbs up, I'm in. Gave it a full run. I'm turning myself back in, fully drained, fully empty. I brought everything I had to the rough and tumble of the road less traveled. So I wanted to share that quote this morning before we get started, as I said I would, because maybe for people that don't want to imagine their final day, maybe you don't want to go all Gary Vaynerchuk and remind yourself at every moment that we're dying. But here's the cool thing. Dying doesn't mean that we may be on our verge to dying someday. I hope it's decades and decades down the road for you. We may be on the verge of it. But the cool thing is, up until that day, that we're dying has nothing to do, that can't block at all the fact that we're still growing. Every day we grow if we ask ourselves to. If we use our mind the way nature intended, and we put it out there. I think we talked yesterday about Terence McKenna and the clue-sifting intellect, right? When we're constantly on the hunt for a fingerprint of providence, and we take our minds just to the edge. Remember Apollinaris' quote, "Come to the edge," he said. They said, "No, we are afraid." "Come to the edge," he said. They came. He pushed them, and they flew. Well, we know now that neurons, regardless of their age, regardless of whether they might be on the verge of checking out one day down the road, they're still into growth. They dig the new. They dig nuance. They dig the nitty-gritty. Which is why I wrote the anaerobic aphorism yesterday for today's show. The 4-letter password for your happiness is grit. And although it's easy to get caught up in, well, I have, my IQ is this, or I'm really smart, or I'm a born natural, or I'm all these other things that we can fall victim to. Bottom line is, in all the research that's been done, study after study after study, it's as much about grit as it is about gray matter. Genius, I said last week, I believe, genius is about elbow grease. Well, you get in there, you apply your clue-sifting intellect. You get in there, day in and day out, you bring it in this moment, in this 20-minute victory. And it takes a lot of grit to be an all-natural being. It's easier to be a cognitive couch potato. It's so much easier just to sit back, relax, and go, nah, I don't need my all-natural being. I'm good. I don't want to release my inner superhuman. But then you look around, as we said yesterday, everything going on in the world, there may very well come a time where you're going to want your all-natural being, where you're going to say to yourself, no, I'm going to ramp this up just because of some of the craziness going on in the world. So when it comes to your happiness, all I'm suggesting is you may want to use your mind the way nature intended. And that is to constantly be on the lookout for the new. Be on the lookout for the exotic. I used to say when I was doing all the television shows, thousands of them over the years, and they would talk about adventure. And I'd say, look, the key is to find adventure in your own backyard. If it's new to you, it's an adventure. If it's new to you, it's exotic. Think about it for a minute. If it's new to you, that's what counts. If you were given an opportunity to go to the moon, you're going to get to jump around, one giant leap. You're going to get to go to the moon. Do you care that a handful of other people have been there before you? No, it's the moon. Wouldn't you want to go? Oh, no, Bri, that's been done. That's passé. That's blah. Someone else has already been there. So when people say all the time, oh, there's no place left on the face of the earth to explore. Wah, 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 you big whiner. If you've never been to any of these cool places, why do you give a damn about other people who've been there before? Well, I'd like to find some pristine where no other footprint. That's your ego talking. Why would you? Oh, I've got to find a place where no one else has ever gone. What are you going all Star Wars on me now? If it's new to you, it's an adventure. If you've never been there, if it's a thought you've never entertained, it's the entertainment of that thought that's exotic to you. And in this instance, that's the only you that counts. That's the only you that counts. Now, your ego will want to be the first. Just like I imagine back in the day, it was pretty cool to get to the top of Mount Everest. And for my friends that are mountain climbers, no disrespect. And candidly, for my friends that are mountain climbers, anything I say isn't going to affect them anyway, so I don't even know why I apologize there. But look at the day and age. Everyone's, I want to get to Mount Everest. Well, let's be truthful. You want to pay a Sherpa to carry your crap, you'll pay someone else to drag you up the mountain. That's the ego talking. Oh, it's got to be new. Well, the pristine in your mind are those places where you haven't traveled before. So I say all the time, let's not be watered down. Let's not be wholehearted, H-O-L-E. When we live wholeheartedly, when we live a full spectrum life, where we get up with the grit every day, and to every situation go, I'm going to push it right to the edge. I'm going to push it to the envelope. I'm going to learn something today. I'm going to learn something right now I didn't know 5 minutes ago. I can guarantee you, if you adopt that mindset. Now, we also talked yesterday about this difference between a big picture. For me, it's you know what it is. It's my job. It's my gig, and I love it. It's my gig to remind you who you ultimately are. Because as I look at the world around me, you look at all the people that are taking medications, all the people that are disgruntled, all the people that are unhappy, all the people that are just loaded for bear. Go on Twitter. You can't say anything without 1,000 people ready to run roughshod, right? Everyone's got an opinion. If you say anything contrary to them, there's going to be hell to pay. When we look at the world around us, how did we get to a position where we're all so angry? Oh, well, I've had a rough life. No, you've had a life. You could be thankful for the fact that you were even tapped to be here in the first place. That said, I promise, when you bring that grit to the moment, I've been doing this for 30 years now. You have your big picture. You have a general sense of where you're going to go. Then let go of the vision of the pot of the gold at the end of the rainbow. Even if it's just for 20 minutes. For all my friends, all the critiques I get about, well, we really wish you'd stop telling people not to chase carrots at the end of the stick. All right, so why don't you and I meet halfway? What they say, the Arthurian legend that the Grail that was used by Jesus at the Last Supper, the Grail was forged by the angels in heaven that took the middle path, that sided neither with Satan nor the Lord, but it was the middle path. Great, I'll meet you in the middle. Do me a favor. Give me 1/72 of your freaking day. Just see if I'm right. For 1/72, instead of worrying, instead of wondering, instead of longing, instead of hoping, instead of dreaming, instead of pining for a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, what if for just 20 minutes you treated your life like you're already that pot of gold? Because you have to know, I already believe that you're a skin bag full of buried treasure. But so many people forget that buried treasure. They're ready to fight over anything. And you can't say anything to anybody. Good Lord. Talk about thin skin. Just look around. But for you and I, if we agree we're not going to live a counterfeit life, then our skin becomes as thick as our backbone, which is pretty amazing, especially when you tap into your all-natural being. And when we bring our grit, we reconnect with that all-natural being, one 20-minute victory at a time. So if you don't want to abandon, if you don't want to follow me in my belief that the promised land is a fool's paradise, if I can't get you to go that far with me, then meet me halfway. 1/72nd of your day. Remember who you ultimately are. No more hoping, no more longing. Carl Sandburg. Hope is an echo. It ties you yonder, yonder, yonder. But I'm here to say that I'm pretty thrilled with who you are at your heart right now. I don't need to know all the minutia. I don't need to know the particulars. I don't need to know what it is that makes you you, because underneath all of that, I think you're a badass already. I think if you would just tap into who you already are, then all these other things that people try to sell you, the good and the bad, they just kind of fluff off. Just kind of fluff off. Because you're bulletproof in that regard. Which leads us into segment number 2. Nietzsche. You know him. You love him. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. And I know there's a couple different versions now out of that song, right? Like Nietzsche was is going to be fired up about being the focus of a pop song or a rap song, whoever's singing it. But I started thinking about stress. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Yes, that's true for an all-natural being. But if you look around, there's a whole host of people that stress is absolutely killing them. It's not making them stronger at all. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger is true if you channel your all-natural being. If you live an artificial life, if you live a counterfeit life, if you live, we talked about yesterday, the artificial intellect. If you live an egoic lifestyle, absolutely. What attempts to kill you doesn't make it stronger. It makes you weaker because you buy into the craziness that is. We talked last week about Lenny and Squiggy, right? In your minds. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger works for people, works for that rare breed of people that want to live fully enveloped in their all-natural being. But for other people, and it comes down to either timid or tough. It doesn't kill me makes me stronger. True, if you're tough, if you're timid, it's going to keep chipping away at you. And it's not the outside things, it's our reaction to those things that causes the stress, that causes the physical damage that so many doctors tell us about. So if you've ever been to a point where you go, I've heard that, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger, but I'm not really sure I believe it. Absolutely, there's a lot of people that don't. So I'm suggesting for 20 minutes. Now you can plan these. You can schedule them, right? Or they can be impromptu. You might be out and about, walking around. We talked yesterday about the benefit of spending time out in nature, how green time is downtime. Take a little bit of time for yourself. Be your own best friend. Get off your own back. Channel your all-natural being. And then you'll realize that when you're tough, Nietzsche was absolutely correct. When you're timid, he was absolutely wrong. But ultimately, you have to decide, are you going to be tough or timid? Now, again, we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. This isn't a cold turkey kind of thing. Can we talk maybe about a percentage of your day where let's say that you've been accustomed to being timid. For whatever reason, you find yourself, you think you're a little more of a timid soul, right? Not someone that throws out all kinds of jargon, someone that's bombastic, someone that's really quick to yell and scream and holler and carry on because on the inside, they're really timid. Right? Not those verbose type of people that you see on Twitter all the time. Everyone has an opinion about who says this, who does what, all those things. But if your life has been to date a little more timid than tough, then for 20 minutes, could you slowly reconnect with that inner toughness that is your all-natural being? Just 20 minutes. Then, if at the end of that 20 minutes, because these things are scalable, that's what I love about them, you might want to go, hey, you know what, Bri? I think I'll do 2 20-minute victories back to back. So now I have 40 minutes of reconnecting with my all-natural being. And I promise you that you'll start to hear that voice. You'll start to feel that whisper. You'll start to feel those slumbering powers that I mentioned in the open. Timid or tough, it's up to us to decide. If you're timid, then you let everyone treat you like a pincushion, right? If you're tough, you go, thanks, I'm not accepting packages today. The delivery dock is closed for the holiday. Yes? So give yourself a 20-minute victory, 20-minute holiday. No, I'm not accepting any pens. Thank you. And when you do that, you're going to realize that it feels pretty cool being tough. Now, you're not doing it in a mean, bullying, verbose kind of way. Just saying in terms of toughness, mental toughness, the thickness of our skin. The thickness of our skin. That's what we focus on. And when we rebuild that, when we rebuild the girth of our spine, and we know that all the negative going on in the world only affects us if we're a co-conspirator. If we let that in, if we adopt it, if we accept it, then we're doing anything but optimizing our outlook on this life. That's why I'm such a fan of you taking 20 minutes for yourself. And you will feel this. At the other end, you'll be able to come out and go, yeah, that's right. Nietzsche's right. That song is absolutely correct. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Now, I don't have to go all medical on you, right? As I try to say every show, because people send me beautiful emails, just really nice emails about all these other things. But remember, in fairness, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a proctologist, I'm not a podiatrist, I'm not a licensed clinical social worker, there's a whole laundry list of people with letters after their names. I'm none of those things. All I simply am is a fan of yours. Not the Meshuggah mind, not the artificial intellect that you and I adopt, that we put on, the training wheels that we never got rid of. But I'm a fan of your all-natural intellect. We said yesterday about being a DJ. If a song comes up in the queue that you don't like it, don't play it. You're the DJ. You're in charge. They're your speakers. Don't listen if you don't like the song that's in the queue. That's all consciousness is. Oh, there's a big debate now, Brian, where everyone's trying to figure out what human consciousness is. Oh, it's a blah, 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 cry me a river. For you and me, what is human consciousness? It's not unlike being a DJ. The songs that pop up aren't your songs. You didn't write them. You didn't sing them. You didn't perform them. You're not getting any juice for them, I don't suspect. They're other people's riffs. You have to decide as a DJ. Or are you going to surrender that consciousness and let the mind play the DJ? Well, welcome to the jungle. Talk about the carnival cognition that we focused on yesterday. Why would we do that to ourselves? And a part of our toughness is going, no, I get this now. I understand what consciousness is. I'm a DJ. Stuff's going to pop up. I decide what gets played. I write my own soundtrack. People talk all the time about negative thinking, defeatist thinking. Those are just songs. Those are just musical riffs that pop up. And if you fall victim to them, it's because your DJ let that song play. So then go, okay, great, time out. I prefer not to hear that song again. I'll put that, down at the bottom of the stack of my 45s. I won't cue that up again. But if you have an iPhone and you look and you're playing your iTunes music, you can see the popularity of a particular song that you've played. Maybe you have some songs you don't always play that much, but there's other songs where you play them hundreds, if not thousands of times. That's your mind. That's the binge thinking. That's the serial thinking that we kicked around yesterday. Well, maybe some of those songs shouldn't be played as much as you play them. You're the DJ. You decide. It's your dance floor. It's your cognition. So consciousness, nothing more than a DJ deciding what records make it into the light of day. Timid or tough, you make the call. All right, so now, since we mentioned time travel, this is a good position to jump right back in to segment number 3. William James, you're going to hear about him in a little bit in segment 4 as well. But I thought he had some great advice that I wanted to share. And he says that the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. So if you channel your inner DJ, the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to play one soundtrack over another. Or sticking with Mr. James, to choose one thought over another. And here, if I can, and again, I'm not beating up on all my goal-setting friends. The beauty of a 20-minute victory is that all stress is an alarm. Stress is an alarm going off telling you something's up. Something's about to go south. Now, in moments, if you cross against the light and there's a car racing down the street, stress is a pretty good thing. Talked last week, I believe, flight, fight, freeze, or focus. Well, there are times in this instant, right now, where that's a pretty good thing. But more times than not, we have stress because we time travel. Oh, well, quantum physics, everything's connected. In 5 years, we'll be able to time travel. We'll find a wormhole. We'll go from... We already have them. Think about the stress in our lives because we travel back to something that happened to us in the past. Think about the stress we have in our lives because we're busy living for the future. So it's my humble opinion that when you live within the present moment, connected to the unimaginable power that moment holds, you don't have any stress. When you travel away from that power, sure, everything and their brother will get your attention. So stress, and the way to combat it, choosing one thought over another. Like going to a restaurant, looking at a menu, you choose what the waiter's going to bring you, I would think. I don't have a lot of times in my life where I've gone in and said to the waiter, whatever, I'm just hungry, bring me whatever you got. Check the bottom drawer in the fridge back there, see what you got, bring it out. I'm cool with that. Who does that? So our greatest weapon against stress is don't time travel. Don't go back into the past and remind yourself how hard, how brutal it was. We've all got those tales, right? All of our baggage. I guess you could say at that point we treat our consciousness like a bellman. Instead of a DJ, we're saying to the bellman, hey, do me a favor. Well, it's like a huge card catalog, right? Acres and acres and acres of thought. And we say to the bellman, go get me that negative opinion that I had in 1979. Or we look into the future going, oh, it's going to be brutal. It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. And even the media buys it. It's just, this is something new of late. We'd be watching a media report, especially in the national media. And they go, 150 billion people are under the threat of severe storms. It's not enough just to sell the drama of a severe storm. They also want to tell you how many people are going to be subject to their drama. Don't fall for it. Where everyone and their brother is trying to get you to choose a particular thought. Trying to get you to stress out. Oh, that's not true, Bri. We just do it. We report it so that people can prepare. I'm not arguing that. Great, be prepared. I'm a huge fan of it. Don't know if you know, but I've made a career the last 20 years probably about being prepared to face whatever Mother Nature throws at me. You can't be a fan of green spaces. You can't be a fan of Wordsworth's, the poet Wordsworth, come forth into the light of things. Let nature be your teacher. Can't be a huge fan of letting nature be your teacher and then not be prepared for whatever she throws at you. That doesn't make sense. So all I'm suggesting, your ability to choose one thought over another. Don't buy into the hype. You pick the thoughts. You're not a bellman. You're not going to worry about what might happen in the future. 17 states are under a tornado watch. Great. Pay attention to what you check your six in the moment. Check your six in the moment. Then you'll know what's going on. Then you will actually have power. The unimaginable power. As Eckhart Tolle calls it, the power of now. You'll have that unimaginable power. When you time travel, they make you leave your power at the border. When you time travel, customs are there. I'm sorry, you're not allowed to bring that here. Not allowed to bring that power. No, sorry, you're going to have to put a duty on that. No, forget the duty. We're not even allowed you to bring it in. When you time travel, they make you check your power at the border. So why do you and I do that? Well, because we're in the habit of doing it. I'm with you. So what can we do to break that habit? That's what we can focus on. What can we do to break that habit? Well, we're not going to quit cold turkey. We can break the habit one 20-minute victory at a time. And again, the safety net, the ability to run back to the port if you want, is that then don't abandon your carrots at the end of the stick. Ignore the experts that say goal setting is a great way to make sure you never succeed. Ignore all those experts. You decide for yourself in your own heart, in your own mind. But for 20 minutes, 1/72 of your day, be your biggest fan. Be your own best friend. And when we have a penetrating insight to who you, yes you, to who you truly are, you remember that you're untouchable. So you could choose one thought over another. If you time travel, you go back to the past, you move into the future, and there's all that stress because in the future, what happens if it doesn't turn out? What if my pot of gold isn't what I think it is? Stay in the moment. Wait to see what the universe presents you in that moment. What part of the jigsaw puzzle is getting ready to fall now? But then you're in the rhythm. You're in the flow. You're not fighting destiny. You're embracing it. Now, that's not to say there's not a tension between the two. We talked yesterday, right? A little bit of destiny, a little bit of fate. It's like a formula. It's like a recipe. What are some of the ingredients? Maybe you go, you know what, Brian? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on my long-term goals 12 hours a day. Fantastic. Then let me have 20 minutes to be your biggest fan and suggest, you want to stick with goal setting? God love you. Who am I to tell you how to live your life? I'm simply asking for you to get off your own back for 20 minutes. Be thankful for the fact that you're here. Be thankful for the fact that you're here to even have an opinion, let alone trying to shove it down someone else's throat. For 20 minutes, live for this moment. The nuts and bolts of the now. The rough and tumble of the road less traveled. And I promise you, you will soon feel that vertigo of freedom, the dizziness of being alive. And I dare say that at some point you might go, you know what, that wasn't so much anxiety as it was energy. I could feel it. I could feel it. I was able to use that energy. And the adventure took me to some really cool places. I stayed in the moment, kept my eyes open. You'll have that feeling bubble up and you'll know. And then when it comes to the debate, because really the only debate that matters is the one you have with the mirror. At the end of your 20-minute victory, you'll take a personal assessment. And if it feels right to you, scale on another 20-minute victory. If it doesn't, that's okay too. You have full right, obviously, to go back and readopt a goal-setting strategy. Because ultimately, as you know, if you look at a pendulum, it's going to find its bottom. It's going to swing way to the left, swing right to the right. It's going to find its bottom. So what if for you and me, the bottom, a little bit of goal setting, a little bit of living in the moment, a little more goal setting, a lot more living in the moment. You could trust yourself to at least do the experiment to see if I'm not telling you the truth. Because ultimately, the only expert I give a crap about is you. The only expert that matters to me at all is you. Because in that moment, in the mirror, you'll decide what's best for you. We all do. We always have. Wherever we are right now in life, we're here because of the decisions that we've made. And I'm simply suggesting for 20 minutes, do it a little differently. No more dissipation. No more draining away of your all-natural energy, but tap back into it. Because it's self-perpetuating. The more you tap into that energy, because believe me, the universe digs grit. The more you tap into that energy, the more the universe supplies it. You're not going to get stagnant. Your soul's sap. Remember the use in our line we used before, the poet. Your soul sap isn't going to stagnate. It isn't going to harden. That's when you know you're on the right path. You take a philosophical thermometer, and if you start to cool, right, the mercury in your thermometer starts to dip, to paraphrase Mark Twain. The mercury in your thermometer starts to take a dive. It's time to heat life back up. How do you heat it back up? Throwing your grit into the moment at hand. And when you do that, when you remember who you are, the debate is over. And the experts will be able to say what they say, but you'll know in your heart, you'll see it in your eyes, in the reflection in the mirror. You'll know how you intend to live your life. All right, segment number 4. I'm pretty sure we started on this yesterday, and then we ran out of time, right? So I promised myself this morning, I was like, nope, let's pay attention. Let's not get down another one of Brian's rabbit holes. So we led off with this concept between artificial intellect, which is our ego, the things that we build up, our training wheels, our water wings, left on, our floaties, left on too long, and our timed released all-natural intellect. So we have an all-natural intellect, and kind of covered on top of that is the artificial intellect. It's like the shellac, the varnish, the paint on a piece of original flooring of virgin wood. But sometimes we get so covered over that we forget our slumbering powers that we mentioned in the opening. O.S. Martin's quote, "Deep within us dwell those slumbering powers that would astonish, truly astonish us. Powers we never dreamed of possessing," right? We're going through life and go, holy crap, I have those powers? Yes, you do. I didn't know that. That's why I'm here. Forces that would revolutionize your life if you aroused and put them into action. I said yesterday, knowledge is power. Well, the knowledge we're focusing on here is the knowledge of who you ultimately are. Maslow had a quote, "The story of the human race is the story of men and women selling themselves short." Selling themselves short. How long have you sold yourself short? Maybe you don't. You have anyone that you know of that does. Selling ourselves short. That's the story. So what can we do to knock that off? What can we do to begin to tap into those slumbering powers? that Martin was talking about. A couple things. I love reading William James, right? A couple quotes that I wanted to share with you. He says that most people live, whether physically, intellectually, or morally, in a very restricted circle of their potential being. They make use of a very small portion of their possible consciousness and of their soul's resources in general. Much like a human being who, out of all of their bodily organisms, should get into the habit of using and moving only their pinky finger. And he closes it by saying that great emergencies and crises show us how much greater our vital resources are than we had ever supposed. So all I'm suggesting is maybe you and I, we don't wait for an emergency to be challenged. We agree, okay, great. What if I am leading a watered-down life? What if I am, per Maslow, selling myself short? What if I am, per James, living in a very restricted circle of my potential being? Are you? You don't have to tell me. You got to tell yourself. You got to be honest. No more BS in the mirror. Have you left your soul on the sidelines? Have you left your spirit in the cellar? It's another great quote of James. Compared with what we ought to be, we are only half awake. Are you only half awake? He says, compared with what we ought to be, we're only half awake. We are making use of only a small part of our physical and mental resources. He says, stating the thing broadly, the human individual thus lives far within his or her limits. We possess powers of various sorts, which we habitually fail to use. So the very next time we want to kill an hour, you just let me know which some of your favorite William James quotes. I'll go ahead and get it because I could read this guy, and I have read this guy all day long. Probably William James, Joseph Campbell, a lot of the transcendentalist poets, Thoreau, Wordsworth, Emerson. I could read these guys and girls all day long. Emily Dickinson, the brain is wider than the sky. Do you treat your brain like it's wider than the sky? Do you have powers that you habitually fail to use? Are you living physically, intellectually, or morally in a very restricted circle of your potential being? Well, what if today, right now, today, is the day you go, you know what, I'm pretty done with imprisoning myself. Shades of the prison house begin to grow upon the boy or the girl. Shades of the prison house. Why are we doing it? We remand ourselves by buying in to outside opinion and conjecture. What if today were the day you stopped selling yourself short? All right, maybe you haven't brought your A game to date. So what? It's the beauty, as we said earlier, about even though we're all dying, we're all still growing. That's the beauty. Neuroplasticity in a nutshell, as you know I like to say. So what? I was a little derailed in the past. Now I'm back on my A game. Bring it. Let's meet in the paint. What if today is the day where you say, I'm going to stop selling myself short? You tap into your all-natural being. Pull off literally anything you want. How would that day look? If you're going to get out your logbook, your journal, your blotter, your evidence pad, write it down. How would today look if you stop selling yourself short? How do you sell yourself short? Maybe some of us, we don't even know we're selling ourselves short, and some of the best ways to do that is to identify those ways. When I ask you, when I say to you, isn't it true? Imagine you're like on a stand in front of the grand jury, right? Isn't it true you live in a very restricted circle of your potential being? How would you respond? How would you respond? And stick with it. Keep asking yourself, okay, A, is Brian nuts? Clearly he could be, right? But we get down to the nuts and bolts of the now. What if he isn't? Am I living my life watered down? Selling myself short? living in a restricted circle of my potential being? Am I living far within my limits? Yes or no? Keep the pen going. That's the beauty of your logbook. You can write down anything you want in your blotter. No one's ever going to see it unless you decide to show it to them, I suspect. But I can tell you, in dealing with my father's suicide, some of the most profound moments I had were when I wrote those letters to him. Or I've said before that the pen was more like a scalpel or a chisel digging into the page as I wrote all those things about how I dealt with his death. And then you know what I did with them? You ready for this? I took them over to the stove and burnt them. All that effort, all that energy, getting it all out of me. Then I was going to hold on to it, not like a passport. So I wrote it all down. Then I took it over, put it on the stove and burned it. Said goodbye. Said I'm not going to time travel. I'm not going to live in the past anymore. But I spent quite a bit of my life shortly after his death selling myself short. I don't know, maybe it was out of punishment, maybe it was out of sense of guilt, who really knows? But I absolutely lived ignoring my slumbering powers. Absolutely lived within the restricted circle of myself. So I speak from experience. If you answer those questions in your logbook, keep the pen going. Maybe the answers don't jump out at first. The ego's going to do what it can to hold you back. The last thing, the egoic self, the last thing your artificial intellect wants to have happen is for you to see who's running the show. Sanctuary or an asylum? What is your mind? Write it down. How do you live a watered-down life? Flip side of that question is, what could you do to not live a watered-down life? What could you do right now for the next 20 minutes to live your all-natural being? To bring your inner superhuman front and center? What could you do? Write it down in your logbook. Because here's a little bit of a commercial. You want to know my opinion? I think we're all counting on you. I think there will be Malcolm Gladwell's tipping point. I think there will be a tipping point. There will be a tipping point where the people that channel their all-natural being begin to turn the tides for the future of all of us. Because the craziness can't go on forever. Can't go on forever. One of the suggestions that I get from time to time is, well, did you ever think about talking about current events? And to be quite honest with you, the reason I most times don't talk about current events is because it only gets me in trouble, right? I'll read something and go, oh, you have got to be kidding me. So that's why sometimes I keep those things to myself. But there's one thing, and this will fall in the category of, oh, Brian's going to get spanked for this. I think you channeling your all-natural being will get us to the tipping point where our future is going to be different than it is now. I couldn't tell you a song this guy sings. Not a song. I barely know what he looks like. I thought he was someone else when I first saw the picture. But there's a performer named Justin Timberlake who, I'm guessing, over the weekend, put out a tweet, a train of thought. And now he's getting slammed, and I guess pretty profoundly. He's getting slammed because he suggested that there's a commonality between us that has nothing to do with the color of our skin. And people are talking about, oh, well, you know, he's usurping our music, usurping our culture, usurping this and that. How dare he? He doesn't have the color of our skin. Forgetting. And I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt to say forgetting. Maybe it isn't forgetting. Maybe it's just a willful disregard for the knowledge that all the congruity in the world, it's skin deep. Justin Timberlake, don't know the guy, don't know his music, don't know anything about him. But I'm going to use this last minute to defend him. Right? All the people on Twitter. How dare you try to make us all the same? Well, we are all the same. And the more your egoic mind wants to separate you, the more your sense of self, your all-natural being, is tied to the color of your skin, you've totally missed it. So not that Justin Timberlake will ever hear this, but God love him for simply suggesting maybe there's a commonality we all share outside of the fray, outside of the battle, outside of all the vicious dialogue that goes on. Maybe there really is a commonality. Maybe there is. You and I know there is. And when you channel your all-natural being, and more people begin to do it, there will be a tipping point in our world. And it will be a safer world for our kids, for our grandkids, for our great-grandkids, for our family tree moving forward. Because as long as we allow all this division, oh, well, I'm very proud of my heritage. Well, so am I. I come from the dirt, jackass. What dirt do you come from? Doesn't matter what continent your dirt was on, it's still dirt. So get over yourself. And again, this might lead to why people are saying, oh, Brian's going to get spanked for that one, because I couldn't care less. Justin Timberlake was right. Sorry, I don't know the guy. If I knew him, I would tweet him and go, hey, God love you, and don't take any crap from anybody. We all come from the dirt. And that's what gives us our grit. But if we continue to work to divide ourselves, if we continue to work egoically, to focus on anything other than our all-natural being, watch out for the future. Watch out for the future. Because it's not going to be a place you and I are going to dig. That dissension will continue. And we'll ignore our slumbering powers. We'll live within that restricted circle of sexism or racism or culturalism or, well, this is the continent I'm from. Well, good for you. There will be a tipping point, and people that channel their all-natural being are going to be the ones that do what they can to make sure we all have a future that we dig. And it begins when we remember who we are. And I talk all the time about why we want to defragment the human mind. As individuals, yes, right? Well, I don't want us fragmented anymore. But it also works as a community, as a culture, as a continent. When we work to defragment, when we learn not to always find the differences and always be ready to go to battle over them. Who was it that said that? Robert Frost. We dance around the ring and suppose, and the secret sits in the middle and knows. Well, for all those attacking Justin Timberlake today, not that he's ever going to hear the show, but for all those attacking Justin Timberlake today, we are a horrible, horrible human being. Just a horrible guy to suggest that maybe we are all sharing one pristine. Maybe we all are just individual packets. Maybe we really are individual spirits of an overall universal spirit. How dare he try to heal the wounds of division by remembering people that we all bleed the same color blood. All right, let the spanking begin. See, this is why I can't do breaking news. Everyone says, oh, you should do breaking news. You should let people know. You should comment on what's going on in the world. And just keep the hate mail coming, please. All right, my friends, we're going to get ready to get out of here. Thank you so much. Sorry again about the audio quality. I hope this is working. Sorry again to my friends at Facebook and Twitter. I really like putting up those individual quote cards, but it's been a challenge. As you know, my laptop decided to go on a summer cruise hanging out at Club Apple. But as soon as I get that back, I promise we got some cool things that are going to be coming. So thanks for sticking with me. Hope the audio quality is okay. And here's the scoop. Before we leave, I'll be back with you tomorrow. Here's the scoop. Oh, and if you want to listen a little later today at 11 a.m. or 8 p.m. Eastern, you get a chance to listen there, and also over at iTunes, just remember, will the boy or the girl who you were be proud of the woman or the man that you've become? And the answer is, as long as you channel your all-natural being. The answer to that is absolutely yes. The child, the younger person in you, will look forward and be absolutely proud of the woman or the man that you've become. All right, we got to get out of here. Have an absolutely fantastic day. Be cool to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Get off your own back. Be your own best friend. And if you can smile and say hello to somebody, that won't hurt either. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
You've been listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy.
Join us live every Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern.
Also, check us out around the clock at allnaturalbeing.com.
Until then, always remember to bring your own bold.
IPMNation.com.